welcome everyone to the San Mateo County Harbor District meeting. Today's date is October 15th. Can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Bernardo?
Here.
Commissioner Brennan? Here. Commissioner Hesslinger?
Here.
Commissioner Tucker?
Here.
President Caravano?
Here. Thank you.
And I have a point of order.
Please.
I'd like to suggest that we move up item 7 because we have a group of fishermen here who are waiting for item 7, and it would be unfortunate if they had to wait for a very long time while the board is in closed session. So I'd like to suggest that we just move up item 7 and then do the closed session
Where would you like to place it?
before closed session.
All right. So we're moving item number 7, titled Amendment to Crab Pot Staging Guidelines, to after staff recognition.
Thank
Okay.
you. Hey, you guys. I just have your item moved up. Still have to do staff recognition.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, at this time, we're going to move to item number 1 is a proclamation for Harbor Master Staff Review. On September the 29th of this year, our Harbor Master, Scott Grindy, received an award from the California Harbor Masters and Port Captains Association, of which the San Mateo County Harbor District is a member. And this award is given annually, and this year our Harbor Master, Scott Grindy, received this award. And on behalf of the Commission, I congratulate Harbor Master Grindy for his dedication and service to our agency. I believe that we can look back over the time that you have served us as Harbor Master. The district has grown with a lot of awareness, a lot of positive improvement, and a lot of trust that we have with your work. And I think that this has been confirmed by the Association of Port Captains and Harbor Masters of California. So I have here a plaque that I'd like to give to Harbor Master. But before I do that, I'd like to give an opportunity to my fellow commissioners. They would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll start. I just think you've been a tremendous asset to us, having come from that place so far. We're very pleased to have you. I think you bring certain innovation, certain fresh air to your position as Harbor Master. I don't know where you're going to go from there or where you could go from there, but it's certainly a pleasure to know you and to work with you. I've seen, since you've been here, quite a bit in the capital project area from you. So you're going around and you're revamping and you're cleaning up and you're putting together. For a long time, it's been good maintenance that we good. I support you and I have felt your efforts. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
This is the art of
Commissioner Bernardo.
I would like to also chime in and echo similar sentiments. I want to say that I hope this isn't going to sound like a performance review or anything like that, but ever since Scott Grindy came to the Harbor District, really, you hit the ground running. I mean, you were sort of forced to hit the ground running, and you bring to the position so much energy, such fresh ideas, a strong community relations affect about you, which really just is so endearing to a lot of the community members, and I really applaud and congratulate you. Well deserved on this, very well deserved, and thank you for all that you bring to the Harbor District.
Mr. Grindy, congratulations. Well done. I came here a couple of months after you were hired. So I don't know what it would be like to work in the commission and work with someone else. You have been a pleasure to work with in your professionalism. And I especially applaud you for your open door policy for everyone. In the time the last few years, the Harbor District has been subject to a lot of public scrutiny and some complaint about how it's conducted itself. You've been a very patient and level-headed ear and voice throughout, and I think the Harbor District is better because of it.
Okay, I'd like to read this proclamation that the commission is going to give to the harbor master. Whereas the harbor master Scott Grindy has served the San Mateo County Harbor District with distinction during the past 2 years, and whereas on October 1st, the California Association of Harbor Masters Report Captain recognized Scott Grindy as the 2014 State Harbor Master of the Year, as he epitomizes the position of harbor master through his extraordinary efforts to advance professionalism, efficiency, and stature of his district. And whereas Scott Grindy has used robust economic and environmental principles to promote the multitude of resources at the Harbor District, which has resulted in a remarkable increase of visitors and improvements to the infrastructure. And whereas Scott Grindy has implemented many sustainability practices and procedures, such as guiding staff to comply with and acquire certification of the California Clean Marina Program, which provides for environmentally clean facilities and protection of the state's coastal and inland waters from pollution through the use of best management practices. Therefore, be it known that the Board of Harbor Commissioners hereby commends Harbor Master Scott Grindy for his outstanding contributions to the Harbor District and the Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina Park communities on the occasion of his award as 2014 Harbor Master of the Year.
So moved in the proclamation.
Second. Do we have a motion and a second for the proclamation? Any further discussion, questions? All the, okay, roll call please.
Commissioner Romero?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan? Abstain. Commissioner Wolfson?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravana?
Aye.
I would like to thank you all. In all honesty, it's the honor of working for you and the staff. You have a great staff here. And what I'm trying to move forward with here has been really because you have a great staff to work with.
Congratulations.
You're very welcome. Okay, so we are going to go to public comments, and I have one public comment from Mr. Dan Haggard. And Mr. Haggard, if you come forward, and the policy of the Harbor District to afford you 3 minutes, and the Deputy Secretary will let you know 30 minutes prior to the 30 seconds.
Good evening, Honorable President and Honorable Commissioners. Tonight I come before you, I would like to call for you to temporarily take off the post office lot from the market and do not accept any offers for sale due to, it's in my opinion that there's been a breach of the spirit of the law regarding public land transfer. Commissioner Paravano, Commissioner Tucker, you both know keenly well how important this lot is to the community. You've gone through the fight in 2000. You've seen the passion from the community. You know that this land was donated by the widows of the farmers. And it was meant to be used for the pleasure of the community, and decided by the community what to, how it should be used. Knowing how important this is to the community members, I believe it is just, at minimum, terribly wrong that there was not a public meeting called out specifically for this transfer of, for the sale of this land. Knowing very well how sensitive it is, I believe it would be a complete insult to the community to do anything other than not respect their wishes. I have tonight with me 275 community members that agree with me and I submit these petition, the signatures on the petition right now. 275 community members that agree that the land should not be sold to the fire district and that it should be considered for the community's use. This is a coastal community. The views are tied to the Coastal Act, the LCP. This is our only one block of downtown El Granada. Daniel Birmingham designed this town to be all roads merge into this one downtown block. And this lot that we're talking about is the prime jewel lot of the prime jewel town on the coast side. There's a lot of people that will be affected. So again, I call for you to not to accept any offer on the property. Mr. Tucker, I did hear you at the candidate forum saying that you would not get in the way of the community's wishes on this matter. And so, you know, I please respectfully hope that you will put this on in the next agenda item and discuss it further. Thank you.
Okay, next we have, there's no more comments for public, or speaker requests for public comment. We have separate recognition, please. Nothing. Okay, Mr. Turner?
Yeah, we actually had a couple accommodations that also were for staff. One was for a recent rescue last week, which was David Arrington, Deputy Harbor Master, and the maintenance specialist Michael Williams, where 4 people in a small motorboat that was flipped over from a potential whale hit. They were able to get out there. They're about 2 miles out, pull them back into the main pier, bring them to the harbor, I should say. And they did well. The staff did well. The people came back wet, cold, but okay. And then they were able to pull the boat back in right before the main pier.
Anything else? And next, you guys are number 7. We'll do 7 before the closed session. Item number 7, amendment to credit card statement guidelines. I have 3 speaker requests for this. First was Mr. Bill Webb. Please come forward and take 3 minutes. The deputy secretary will let you know 30 seconds before your time expires.
All right. I have a commercial fishing boat at the harbor there, and also pay for a storage for my crab pots. The unfortunate thing, like so many of us, we don't have room to work on our pots in that yard, especially if it rains. You're going to be in mud up to your knees. We should work together some way to resolve this. That's the only option that I have other than stringing pots alongside the Highway 1 out there, and I think I'd get arrested for that. I sold my boat, but I'm going to be part of that business for a while. And there's no other place to turn to work on gear, stage gear. We're a part of this community, I think. And one commercial boat says it's getting to where I feel like taking my boat back home to Fort Bragg. I don't think it should come to that. I think we should pay. The big issue is the cleanup. Anybody that works on their gear up there or stages any pots up there, charge them $250 a fee, whether they got it clean or not. When I worked up there every afternoon, and anybody from the harbor can tell you, I swept the area up, me and my wife, and took care of it. Why should I get punished for the ones that don't? So I think everybody should have to pay. And I'm gonna be semi-retired, but as soon as I get my knee replaced and my back surgery, you pay me $250 for every spot in there, and I'll come and sweep that with a house broom and clean it up for you. I mean, it's gonna put a big hardship on us, and our job is hard enough as it is. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Bill. Next is Mr. Bob Berry. The
Okay. Basically, I have the same comments that Bill has. I've been working with Bill, and I've got my own boat, and I've been working for myself for the last couple of years, and that area is very valuable, and I treat it well. I know a lot of people do, and it sounds like there's a few people that don't. And we put a deposit down, everybody puts a deposit down, and if somebody doesn't take care of their area, they can lose their deposit, but they can also lose the ability to work there, and that would be fair. If I was abusing it, I would expect to be kicked out. But the harbor master will tell you, you could talk to John. He doesn't have problems with me. He doesn't have problems with Bill. He says, we know who we're having problems with. We need to get rid of those people and not allow them up there, but the ones that are doing a good job, I think it would be nice to be able to work there. The other issue that I would like to address is the idea that if we use pallets, that we get charged. I bought my pallets, they're all painted, they've got my name on them, and I do my best not to lose my pallets. I know people come and get all kinds of garbage pallets and drop them off and leave them there, and I cut a lot of them up last year trying to help get rid of them. That they weren't mine. I just started using the pallets, but if we have a trailer and a forklift, we can unload our trailers very quickly. When the buyers come out to help us load our boats, they pick them up with the forklift and drive them down and drop them off. They put them back in our spotter on our trailer, and they go back home. And like I said, I wouldn't want to lose any of them. The people that are using them and expect to continue using them put a lot of money into their pallets and take care of them. And if everybody that uses a pallet gets charged the full deposit, there's not going to be an incentive for people to clean up. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't clean up, but it puts a really big hardship on us, and we're not the ones that are the problem. The people that are the problem are going to come down there and they're going to drop them off like they've been doing, and they're still going to be there. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed. And we talked with John, and he was saying last year people were supposed to mark their pallets, and a lot of people did. They screwed on a temporary name tag, and then at the end of the season they unscrewed the name tag and left the pallets. Ours are all painted and stenciled with our names on them, and in doing that, people don't leave their gear up there because they put a labor into it and money into it, and I think it would be right for us to get our deposits back when we leave our space clean and clear and move our gear out. And I would hope that you would consider that. Thank you.
Last speaker is Mr. Meltz.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Stephen Mills. I've been fishing out of Pillar Point Harbor since 1990. I've watched the fishery change. The parking lot has always been used as a staging area. I've seen the Harbor Patrol having issues with keeping it clean. I'm here to support the crab pot staging guidelines and the changes that John has made and Scott has worked on in making the harbor a cleaner, smoother working facility. I understand that that space is...
Good job, asshole.
Hey, that space is used for making money in the harbor. We're all
Steve and nobody else.
Bill, we're all here to make a living. The bottom line is, I moved my crab gear from San Jose up to Pillar Point Harbor, and it's all ready. It's a staging area. That's what it's used for. I don't think it should go any farther than that. And like I said, I support what they've come up with in these crab pot staging guidelines.
And then public comment. Can we report from the harbor master?
Could I say one more thing? I forgot, and I think I had a few seconds left.
Okay, Bob.
I'm sorry. Just one quick thing. The date that is approved has been the 15th all along, and now it's being moved to the 29th and as a proposal. If it's just a staging area, if we could at least move the gear that we have done and put it in the parking space, then we can kind of work in the areas that we've rented to store our gear, and it makes it a lot more feasible in working on it. And that, you know, if it's just a staging area, I would ask that the 15th at least would be considered. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
With respond to that question, I believe that because of the time lag of what's going on with meetings and months, and the effort between official meeting and with John and getting this resolved, I have no problem with saying that we start the 15th this year and then have a different date next year for when we do that. Because a lot of people who are maybe not from here but are showing up with their years out of the area, you know, are expecting the 15th.
It shows here that it said, staging authorized the grab season only beginning October 15th through December. Right. I thought I had seen that. That's what it does say. Right.
They proposed the change to the 29th.
I don't see that.
That didn't make it into the paperwork we have. It still
Oh,
says the
good.
15th.
Good. Because they told us, we came the 15th this morning and they wouldn't allow us to put it there. They said that it was gonna possibly be the 29th.
We were in the middle of a staff report here for this item.
You know, I think the best way to say this is it's gonna probably be an evolution as it was earlier last year. Part of the biggest problem here is that $34,000 in cleanup of the waste left behind. People are saying about pop tires from here, tires and left in the ground, from the proper cleaning from some. And also the fact that the pallets being required to be painted this year with names on it, which is a big change. One of the complaints that the staff have had is I think you heard one of the speakers talk about the tags that were screw gunned on. When they're all done, they unscrewed it and the tags are gone, no way to identify whose pallet it was. That's a huge piece, and it's a dumpster load of wood that has to go away for this debris. And so we've asked that this be permitted at this time, as written and read. And then, you know, I think that I have no problem hearing from the fishermen for next year if we, you know, how it goes. Maybe we can make some better modifications, but I think this is always going to be evolving because it is a parking lot. It's used by local people, and we have to accommodate everybody, not just the fishermen.
Mr. President, then I would move to adopt the amendment to the crab pot staging guidelines as presented to us this evening.
I have some questions.
Do we need a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the amendment to crab station guidelines. Under discussion comments, Commissioner Brennan.
So just to clear up the confusion about the 15th versus the 29th, why were people put away?
I think it was more just the confusion of staff. You know, I've been on this side doing a different project, and John, who's been working, is on vacation this week, so he didn't brief all of them on what that date change would be.
So that's gonna get cleared
Yeah,
up?
yeah, actually, I had phone calls on that.
Okay.
We actually allowed a few, and the trailers already pulled in, just so that we could keep moving forward.
And how many people generally, do the staging? We've been charging a fee for some time,
I
right?
don't have the numbers with me, but I can mention.
Well, if you had to take a guess, what would you say?
Probably 25 to 40.
So 25 to 40 people are spending $250. And was it $250?
I don't have the numbers with me, so I'm guessing on this. I mean, the volume of space of parking stalls being used.
Last year it was a deposit.
Yeah.
It's always, yeah, it's been a refundable deposit.
Not a fee.
Okay, so this is a fee now, not a deposit, or?
No, it's still a deposit. The problem is the fact that when they leave, lots of times, I hate to condemn anybody in what I'm saying here, but the intent is you do have some, what I'll call traveling businesses who will show up with a semi late at night, unload, come back in, load the stuff up, and then they leave the waste behind. And when we only have one staff person at night, and they're doing that loading, they could be over at Average doing the restroom or something of that sort, or dealing with the rescue. And so they may not be seen when they're unloading. So there's some concerns we're trying to button up as well.
Okay, so just so I understand, if it is 40, and we don't know, guessing, so we're looking at $10,000 of revenue coming in with this.
It's a deposit.
Okay, with the deposit, but this is gonna be a deposit still, is what you're suggesting on here. So $10,000 deposit is coming in roughly somewhere in that neighborhood, and then we're giving that money back to people who left a pile of junk?
The problem, okay, I think you were at that meeting, but one of the things that came up in that discussion was that, let's say you have a parking stall, you cleaned out your stuff, but you left your mess. Sometimes that mess moves to the next stall because nobody's around, so they broom it over. Now all of a sudden, stall B, when they were in stall A, has got the mess, and now they're having to clean up somebody else's mess. And it just keeps getting dominoes, depends on, it's like a race to get out of there so you don't have to clean up your own mess.
So,
Or some.
the question I have is, and, I don't go out and, I don't have crab pots myself, so I don't know exactly what it's like, but I do visit the crab pots, as do many tourists, because they're cool to look at, and I think everybody enjoys having the crab pots in the upper parking lot particularly. So, when somebody gets their deposit back, isn't there an inspection where the Harbor Patrol would come and take a look at the space?
Correct, and
And
that's where the
visit with the
problem-
neighbors and make sure everybody was.
Again, you don't always have everybody who has a stall and rent, in the space rental type process, there at the time you're expecting one.
Can you, like, email them or cell phone them or something?
Coordinating, they may still be out, they may be
Uh-huh.
out of town, like we had someone from San Jose. He may be out of the area, and all of a sudden someone shows up, I wanna go, I wanna get my deposit, I wanna get cleared out and go, and they just show up.
I'm just trying to think of a creative solution here. What if they had to get sign off from their neighbors on all sides before they could get their deposit back?
I think the concern I have is the amount of staff time. We're already spending the cleanup time as it is. We're at $3,000 to $4,000 in dump waste having to clean up. And then having staff time to go out and not just inspect, but now get all the neighbors together or sign off. I like the idea, but I know it's gonna be labor intensive.
You could, though, put it on the person with the deposit to collect the signatures or have emails or whatever from their neighbors in order to get their deposit back. It means they wouldn't get their deposit back immediately, it would create a delay. Or here's another idea, what if the $250 they are paying in a deposit is actually a fee, and then the district would have $10,000, and then we could have
We
somebody
tried
go
the
clean up.
fee, I think it was
Yeah.
3 years ago or so.
We just had the fee, we started with a fee,
Yeah.
then we went to the deposit, and then this year again, the harbor, and we got input from all the guys in the harbor, that work there. They wanted it to be a fee again because of all the cleanup they had to do, so with the new rates and fees that we did this year, we put it as a fee again, and now that's a problem, because everybody's cleaning up after themselves, and the people that aren't here, because they don't care. Now we're trying to put it back to the deposit, so we've tried in a short
It's
of
been
things.
back and forth, and it really comes down to, it's
Well-
very difficult no matter how you do it, whether
I-
it's either an economic hit for them because they gotta pay a fee, or it's an economic hit because they didn't get the deposit back.
So with the fee, I'm just trying to follow this, so with the fee, it was a fee last year, not a deposit, is that what I'm hearing?
It was a deposit last year, with the new rates and fees that we just put into thing with the new budget that we just had, we had changed it back to a fee.
So now we're changing it back to a deposit?
Correct.
I see, but we haven't even tried the fee yet, which is what we all voted for.
We also, if we were gonna go that way, then we are back to where crabbing is started. And so, as you heard, there's people waiting at the door.
Right,
And so we would have to bring this back after the season has started.
so basically, this is coming to us too late.
That's what I've already said, is it was coming to us too late, because we met on it about 3 weeks ago, between the cycle of commission meetings, and then we had a group meeting that the fishermen all wanted to get together at the tenant event to formalize what would go in or not.
Okay, so just so I understand this, when we agreed to charge a fee instead of a deposit, what was the thinking at that time? How did that change?
We were looking at the fact that we had to clean up, and so it just made, it spread the wealth of cleanup.
But that we would pay for it, the cleanup, because we have the money to do it, because we got the fee.
Right.
But why wouldn't we wanna do that? That seems.
Because there was a large quantity of crab fishermen who came and asked that we do not charge a fee.
They asked the staff
They
that.
came, no, they came through to the board meeting.
I don't remember.
I don't recall
Yeah, I
anything
don't
like
know.
that.
It was was it it the last meeting?
Yeah, it was actually what the comment, maybe it was last year, but the comments that were made were, we will patrol last year and make sure this doesn't happen.
Mr. President, I can have my.
Okay, Commissioner Holden.
This is clearly an example where the commission needs to rely upon staff who face the problem in trying to find a solution for it. So this is an example where year to year, we're continuing to try and find something that works, that doesn't penalize those crabbers that are being responsible, and seeks a way to recoup the cost from those that aren't being responsible, usually those from out of the area, not local residents or locally based crabbers. So I really want to rely upon staff in this process, and I'm willing to relook at it next year or look at it however many times it needs to, in order not only to tinker with the existing situation and solution, but also to account for changing situations in the future. Next year might be very different, and so we need to look at that. And anything that doesn't penalize the responsible crabbers who come here and work out of our facility is something solution I want to find.
I just have one last question, which is, I see here at the bottom, what concerns me under the regulations is I think I can get most of this stuff in red. We really haven't heard a thorough description of all these changes, but at the bottom it says no gear work allowed. And that concerns me because it does seem that there is a percentage, probably a small percentage of crab fishermen who come from out of the area, and for whatever reasons, they do need to do a little gear work in the parking lot. And it seems like it would, since the district's mission is to foster an environment for fishing, it would be in the district's best interest to figure out a creative way to allow these fishermen who need to do a small amount of gear work in our parking lot, the ability to do that as long as they're in good standing.
Well, and to jump back to the meeting that occurred with, it was a tenant meeting where we had that topic discussed. I don't know what part you came into to hear.
I heard pretty much that whole discussion.
I just don't know. But what I know is that one of the comments that was really strongly talked about was all the stainless wire that's on the ground, as well as people dragging their lines way out so the traffic can't get there, the vehicles all parked in the rows. It's a constant policing issue, as, in other words, another staff consumed time. I'm not saying that we can't put staff on it. What I'm saying is it eats up a lot of time, which then becomes why we originally asked for a fee.
Well, I don't see why, I voted for the fee, I believe I don't remember, but the board voted for the fee, and it seemed like that was a good idea to make sure that we were cleaning up the area, because I agree that we definitely don't wanna have bits of stainless line and other debris getting into the harbor, which it will definitely run off into the harbor if it's not properly cleaned up. So I agree that that stuff absolutely has to get cleaned up. But at the same time, if we have crab fishermen who can't get their gear into the water to fish with it, and they're responsible, and they clean up after themselves, it seems like we're just creating a rule that isn't, really sensitive to the people who we have fishing, some of which we know quite well, because they come back every year. They know everybody at the harbor, they have reputations they care about, and they're responsible fishermen. So it seems to me that there's gotta be a way, and maybe we're not gonna do it this year, but I would hope that we would figure out a way to balance it so that those fishermen who are, responsible, they clean up, they make sure that the water quality is maintained, and they're just doing what they need to do so they can go fishing, and also make sure that we have a clean harbor. They're allowed to do the little bit of work that they need to do. Somehow we've got to strike a balance here.
There's got to be a balance, except that, and I don't disagree. I think that the problem is more of how we deal with that balance and the cost impact with it. Because,
Thanks.
I'm at the pleasure of the board of which
So we have a motion on the floor to approve the guidelines, an amendment to the craft pot staging guidelines. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Carolano?
Aye. The motion carries. At this time, the commission is going to go into closed session. Item number 2 regards public employment, government code section 54957, D1, general manager. So we're going to go into closed session. Okay, we're coming out of closed session, item number 2, and there was no action that was taken. And we're entering into open session, item number 3, for identified labor negotiator pursuant to government code 54957.6. And I hereby identify Mr. Steve Miller as a labor negotiator. So now we're going to go into closed session, and item number 4 is conference with labor negotiators, government code section 54957.6. We're going back to closed session. We're back into open session, and during the last closed session, there was no reportable action.
Mr. President, are you finished here?
Yeah.
If I may, we've had 2 closed sessions, and there's no reportable action. I would like to speak for a moment about the issue of the closed sessions and see if we can come to some kind of understanding this evening. I'd like to offer the acting general manager position to Harbor Master Scott Grindy and give him an opportunity to work with Mr. Grinnell for the next 6 months. And if we haven't made a final decision at the end of that period of time, have 2 3-month extensions. So in other words, Mr. Grindy, if he accepted the position of acting general manager, would have that position for 6 plus 3 months. And then my assumption would be that he would go ahead and leave immediately and go into the front office, as it were, and that his position would be filled by 2 assistant harbor masters, who he will name, that would become acting harbor masters. In making my motion, which I will make in a moment, there would be no additional compensation. His salary would remain the same as it is now, at least for the first 6 months, and then perhaps it could change after that. Other things that may be needed would have to be discussed as time went on. But those are the only things that I would be prepared this evening to put into a motion, to see if I get a second and to see if I have enough votes to sustain that. So therefore, I would move that Scott Grindy, Harbor Master Scott Grindy, be given the acting position of general manager for the next 6 months. And if it's not concluded in our hiring at that time, 2 3-month extensions could occur after that. He's to remain at the same salary that he's received now, and that 2 assistants would be promoted to harbor master. We would go back to the 2 harbor master system. There are things that would have to be cleaned out by him or clarified by the unions or whatever. But that would be my motion, Mr. President.
So Commissioner Tucker, before even there's a second, while certainly the first part of your motion I think is appropriate the way the agenda was written, the motion to promote assistant harbor masters has not been agendized, and so with respect, I wonder if you might consider modifying your motion accordingly.
Not having received a second thus far, then I would remove the portion of the motion that deals with other employees other than the harbor master, and leave that information up to him to decide. Claire?
We have a second?
Yes, I'll second. I have a point of order,
Please.
having seconded it. We previously voted that motions be put on, we vote on putting a motion on a future agenda. but I believe that it's reasonable under Robert's Rules of Orders, as well as the circumstances here, that these are exigent circumstances involving some timeliness, and therefore, subject to the president's accepting the motion in a second, could go forward now.
You're looking at me for, it is my view that putting aside Robert's rules under the Brown Act, the motion that you have made is one that could have been considered under the agendized closed session, and the public has been properly notified that this item is under consideration and that you are, you need no exigency to act as you have decided to.
Very good, thank you. You clarified my question. Thank you. Okay, so.
Okay, we have a motion, a second, discussion, questions? Commissioner Brenner.
Yes, I would like to say that I support this idea of having Scott Grindy as the acting general manager. As we all know, Mr. Grinnell will be retiring very soon, and we do need to act fast. And I have no problem having the Harbor Masters and Port Captains Harbor Master of the Year being the acting general manager. I have absolute confidence that Harbor Master Grindy can move us forward. So with that and the circumstances being the way they are, I'm going to support this.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a couple. So I just wanted to point out that I'm very concerned that the board violated the Brown Act this evening on a couple of different points. In the first closed session, there was a discussion about salary as related to the interim, or whatever we're calling it, position, or lack thereof. And it was a fairly detailed discussion by the board about salary, related to salary. Secondly, there was also a discussion about,
Excuse me, I think
I'm not
we're out of
finished
order
yet.
here. We're talking about identifying a motion, we're just dealing with a motion
this is
with
my,
the labor negotiator.
this is my turn.
I think this.
I know you don't want to hear about the Brown Act violations, but I need to bring it up.
No, Commissioner Brennan, if I might jump in here for a moment. Without in any way diminishing the significance of alleged violations of the Brown Act, the way to allege violations of closed session procedures is not to make those closed session conversations public in advancing those allegations. I would be happy to provide you with the proper procedures and explanation as to how to put forward your concerns, but this is such an unusual situation. A closed session conversation cannot be made public under the guise of an alleged Brown Act violation. Let's just leave it at that. There are ways, if you would like to pursue this, and I'd be happy to explain them to you, but not at the expense of explaining in public what went on in closed session. And I would, I can't sit here and let that happen. I think I would leave the room if you were to continue to discuss what happened in closed session.
The other concern that I have is that labor negotiations for filling the harbor master's position were also discussed in closed session. That's all I have to say. Thank you. That was the harbor master, not the general manager, just to be clear.
We have a roll call.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. The motion carries. We have one item on the consent calendar, the minutes of the meeting on October 1st, 2014.
I'm sorry, the HR manager just has one question. 6 months from today, 6 months from today. Thank you.
The consent calendar is item number 5, minutes of meeting October 1st, 2014.
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for,
We have a correction.
Excuse me, point of information, Mr. President. On these minutes, there's a correction. You'll notice it's in red. And just for the record, you would be voting for these minutes as corrected.
I'll accept the amendment motion as accepted.
okay, we
I have a comment.
have a motion and a second to accept the amended minutes, so please comments.
I'd just like to comment for the public's information, the amendment to the minutes is that a motion was made at the October 1st meeting by Commissioner Brennan to agendize an item on the next agenda to discuss hiring an executive search firm to assist with the hiring process of the new general manager. The motion failed due to a lack of a second. So that's the change that we're talking about that's been made to these minutes. And for reasons that I've given in the past, I'm not going to vote to support the minutes. Thank you.
Any more discussions, questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, informational item, wholesale fish buying unloading lease fee status review. This time I recuse myself from this item because I have a client conflict of interest that do business with one of the buyers.
All right, then we'll continue with item number 6. Mr. Grinnell, report.
Yes. This responds to a request as moved by the commission to have an update on those items. And the informational update memo, I think, is self-explanatory for the benefit of the public who may not have seen this. It basically says the following, that the, first of all, that the district's auditor's inquiry into the fees charged under the 3 leases held by the 3 wholesale fish buyers and unloaders is still in progress. The major reason is because one of the lessees has not yet provided the requested information. We were in contact with that lessee, and that information should now be forthcoming. So then the second part of that is a survey of fees and charges of several other harbors was undertaken, and that report is not in final form yet. It will be. So there are basically 2 items in progress. You'll note in paragraph 2 of the memo that since that pair of items began, there has been some movement on the issue raised regarding the potential for amending the leases, the 3 of them, or any 1 or 2 of them, as the case may be, to address the question of modifying those fees. And what has occurred, for the record, is that 2 of the lessees, of the 3 lessees, have responded to the Harbor Commission's prior offer to agree to consider possible amendments if they receive a written request
from one or more of the lessees. And in fact, 2 of the lessees have provided written requests, and so the district's general counsel has responded in writing to those 2 lessees individually, asking for what they are interested in changing. And we are waiting for responses from those 2. The 3rd lessee has not as yet provided any such inquiry.
Any questions of this information along the memo?
I have questions. So, I've been asking for information on the audit and on the, Dornbush Associates, fish buying fee survey for, 6 months now? I understand that the general manager authorized both of these 2, audits. One is being done by our accounting firm, JPA CPA. Is that, do I have that right?
JJ, yeah,
JJ?
right, I think, yeah.
JJ CPA.
Yeah.
And the other by Dornbush. 2 separate audits. One is auditing what the fish buyers have been paying the district and how much fish they've been bringing in. The other audit is not really an audit, it's a survey. So my understanding is it's a survey of fish buying fees up and down the coast of California. Today we haven't seen any information. This report provides no information. So for that reason, I would like to request a copy of the draft report for Dornbush, which we should have received in this packet tonight. I would like to see the draft ASAP, and if I need to put in a public records request for it, I will. So let me know what's best. I'd rather not put in a PRA request, but if that's the only way to get the information, I'll be happy to do that formally. Then with regards to this correspondence between the district and the fish buyers, letters, whatnot, I'd like to see those too. I'd like to get a better assessment on where we're at to date. So I would like those provided to me, and if I need to put in a PRA request for that as well, I will. But hopefully the staff can provide me with that information, which frankly I've been requesting this for way too long. So I'm very disappointed with how thin this report is, given all the money that we've spent with these consultants and the number of months that this has been going on and dragging on and on. That's pretty much all I've got to say about it. Thank you.
Anything further? That concludes the item. Item number 8, please bring in our president. Item number 8 is the Johnson Pier Electrical Repairs Engineer.
Yes.
For the president. Here is coming.
Okay. The Johnson Pier main feed electrical, just for a little background visually for those who have been on the pier, you have some large switchgear and transformers over by the harbor master office on the Catch Joanne restaurant side of the harbor master office. It goes underground and then to an open area underneath the pier, and then services power that feeds everything from all the different docks on Johnson Pier, as well as the fish buyers at the end, and a few other things like pier lighting, etc. As far as where the feed serves electrically. Through our facility condition survey efforts and through the electrical contractor who happens to be working on removing all the stuff that's been put underneath there over the last 5 decades that is no longer used and abandoned, it was discovered that the pipe that's the main feed, that 800 amp 480 volt feed, is made out of plastic for the pipe, and the pipe is no longer really holding together anymore. Saltwater exposures, some sunlight, even though it's under the pier, but that saltwater exposure and the old style PVC pipe just isn't holding up. What I'm asking for here is to get a design and the permitting going now, so that if it was to fail, we can expedite the repair immediately contacting Coastal Commission County permitting for emergency permits versus waiting till it fails. It may not fail for up to 2 years, we do not know, but as the pipe deteriorates, there's going to be friction, there's going to be things wearing on the wires themselves, the insulation and such. I want to get ahead of this thing instead of let it go bad and we have to be down for 3 to 4 weeks. So I'm asking for authorization basically to get Martha Nichols out here, get the design going, get the bidding going, bid packet I should say, and then the permitting process going, because with Coastal Commission involvement, we can be up to 6 to 8 months just getting the permits.
For purposes of discussion, Mr. President, I would put a motion on the floor. I would move to adopt resolution 29-14 to amend the fiscal year 2014-2015 integrated operating and capital budget to include an amendment to an existing contract of Moffitt and Nickel Engineers for engineering services in an amount not to exceed $70,000 for electrical design, permitting, and bid construction project support services.
I'll second that.
We have a motion second to approve number 8. Any discussions, questions?
I have some questions. So, can you explain again the location of where the electrical will connect with the electrical that we're not replacing? So does it just go underneath the entire length of Johnson Pier, or where does it
It branches
terminate?
all through that system. There's different transformers on different docks that it feeds to. There's different switch gear that it branches off from. I didn't bring it going for that purpose, but basically it's like a tree trunk. It comes out and branches over to different switch gear.
So it connects to all of the docks?
It serves all the docks, serves the main house powers for the fish buyers, lighting on the pier. It's pretty much our main power supply for the pier. And it comes off those green boxes over by the harbor office. It goes underground in a track before it comes out to the bulkhead and then goes out onto the pier.
Under the pier?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9 is call for nomination of the Special District Selection Committee to elect a special district member on the San Mateo Lasco pursuant to section 56332. General Manager.
Yes, this has come before you in the past. There's time now, once again, for the Harbor District, if it chooses to nominate someone to take up this particular special district seat on the LAFCO to represent special districts. You have received a communication from Joshua Cosgrove, who seeks to continue as LAFCO member for the special districts. We haven't received any other communications from anyone else as of this point. And so this is before you to consider nominating someone, be it Mr. Cosgrove or someone else, or no one at all.
Mr. President, I would move to nominate Joshua Cosgrove.
I'll second.
We have a motion second to nominate Mr. Joshua Cosgrove to continue special district member on LAFCO. Any more discussion, questions? Mr. Brunel, can you tell us whether or not Mr. Cosgrove has said anything or taken any positions on LAFCO that shed any light on whether he'd be favorable or unfavorable to dissolution of the district in where LAFCO is?
I do not have that knowledge, but I believe, and I can follow up and get you more information, that he would not be favorably inclined to dissolve the district. But I do not have any authoritative information on that.
Thank you, that's all I need to know.
I have something.
Please.
At the LAFCO meeting where the Harbor District was the topic of discussion and LAFCO made a decision on approving the letter that Martha wrote, who is their director. There was no other representation from the district except me, so our general manager wasn't at that meeting, neither were any of the other board members. And I was asked to speak on behalf of the district because we didn't have our general manager or our attorney there representing us. And I'd just like to let the board know that that didn't go unnoticed. So I don't know where you guys were there or why you weren't there that day, but it would have been appreciated by LAFCO if they had seen a little bit more enthusiasm from the district, at least in terms of attendance at that meeting. So just wanted to mention that.
And what was the date of the meeting?
I don't remember the date, but I was there.
I might point out at that same meeting that Commissioner Brennan attended, it was Commissioner Cosgrove that spoke to change the adjective and wording in a letter from LAFCO to the board. They used rather strong adjectives in describing what was going on over here and what he felt. And he was able to lobby on behalf of a less stringent adjective in describing what was happening over here. And my colleague, Adrian Tissier, almost put it back to the original form, so she's not very friendly right now.
The change was so minor, it's not even worth mentioning, but that it is true that there was one tiny language change. It had absolutely no bearing on the content of the letter whatsoever. So just,
I would like to find out what the date of this meeting was.
Peter ought to know.
I can find out for you. I don't recall that.
Was it this month or last month?
It was just a couple weeks ago.
It was the same date as the second of the Harbor District September board meetings,
Which
is
was
my
canceled.
recollection.
Which was canceled. So our attorney was here, our general
Yes.
manager was here.
The meeting's at 2 o'clock. It's a daytime meeting. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, I misspoke. I know there was a meeting on September the 17th.
The LAFCO meeting is a daytime meeting. It always has been.
Item number 10. Designate harbor
Did you vote on number 9?
No,
Oh,
they got off track.
we did, oh, we did, I'm sorry, I apologize. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. Okay, now, item number 10. Designate Harbor Master Grindy as Harbor District Representative for the San Mateo County Sea Level Rise Vulnerability Assessment Working Group. The General Manager.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Grindy has attended the first meeting on invitation from the San Mateo County Vulnerability Assessment Working Group. This group has been formed by the county board following the second of two major conferences in the past few months concerning sea level rise issues for San Mateo County. And so staff recommends that Mr. Grindy be designated as the Harbor District's representative on this working group.
Okay, any further? No. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 10. Any further discussion, questions?
I have a question. When is the next meeting scheduled?
I have no idea.
I believe it was the 23rd.
don't worry about it, she has it.
I'd like to know from my notes.
Thank you.
Jim.
Okay,
And
we'll
Robert.
roll call.
Thanks.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 11, designate general manager to provide a private district representative to San Mateo County Comprehensive Transportation Management Plan Technical Advisory Committee.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item number 11. Do we have any discussion, questions?
I would like to say that since, it appears that the board voted to hire Scott Brady as our interim general manager this evening, it would make sense that we would want to have him be the representative on this technical advisory committee for, the transportation management plan. So I don't understand why we would want to have our current general manager representing us when we need to transition to the new general manager.
Is my thoughts that he's not been made any, Mr. Grundy has not been made.
Isn't that what happened earlier? I mean, maybe I misunderstood.
Yeah, we
But in
do.
terms of,
We do.
but in terms of, other factors, in terms of contract.
Point of information, if I may, that might help clarify. I was requested to represent the district on this technical advisory committee as general manager. And it's my expectation under the circumstances that when I step down, Mr. Grundy would indeed take over for that purpose.
Well, why wouldn't we just go ahead and do that now? Because it would be a shame if, I mean, this technical advisory committee isn't gonna have that many more meetings, and it seems like this is a great opportunity for Scott Grundy to start to make connections with the people that he's going to need to work with, and this is a plan that he's going to need to be well versed in, especially given how important it is for the district to get grant money to help us with some of our transportation planning. So I just think it would be putting Scott Grundy at a disadvantage if he's not going to these meetings. So I think he needs to attend. Now, it seems wasteful to have them both attend, but I believe that Scott Grundy really needs to be there. So I just want to make that point, and
Mr. President, I think for continuity, since there are only a few meetings left, I think the general manager should remain and should continue. And they can brief each other on their meetings.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
no.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Motion carries. Item number 12, extension of certified employment list for the Deputy Harbor Master A and Harbor Worker B. Director of Human Resources, Maria.
Yes, we have two lists, Deputy Harbor Master A and Harbor Worker B, that we would like to extend so that we don't have to redo the listing. We still have quite a few people on the Deputy Harbor Master A list and a few people still on Harbor Worker B, so we would like to extend the list in case we have any openings.
So, okay, I do have a question before I second it, and I don't know somebody else.
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Discussion.
Yes, question, how old are these lists now?
About a year,
Okay, and so they're fairly fresh.
yes.
Is there any awareness as to whether or not any or all of these people are still available or not available?
Yes, there is an awareness that they are still available.
All of them, or for the most part?
80, 75, 80%.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 13, suspension of hiring freeze and possible hiring of one or more employees of Deputy Harbor Master and/or Harbor Worker B and/or accounting specialist. Director of Human Resources.
Yes, it was asked last board meeting to bring forth a staff report requesting a suspension of a hiring freeze so that we could possibly hire some more employees. So this is, the recommendation is to suspend the hiring freeze in order to fill 2 harbor worker B positions at Oyster Point Marina Park and a deputy harbor master at Pillar Point Harbor, and also to suspend the hiring freeze in order to fill 1 accounting specialist position that will work at Pillar Point Harbor and 1 day a week, I believe, at administration that will be doing collections and some backup up there.
I have a question, Mr. President.
Yes.
Did you say the accounting specialist would be a part-time position?
No, I did not. Well, they're gonna both be working, it's gonna be a full-time position, but they will be working at Pillar Point Harbor and some administration work. We would like to concentrate on collections, and then there is a need to have 2 people at Pillar Point Harbor doing that accounting work.
Is this the person that currently is Emily Cooper doing that work?
Currently, that's the person doing the work, yes, but I don't know if she'll be on the certified list or appointed, but that is,
In the ordinary realm of things, is there a harbor worker currently employed that would be eligible to move up?
yes, there is.
Is that your thinking?
That's my hope.
And then you would ask that we hire a new?
Harbor worker, correct.
Okay, great. Given what we did earlier this evening,
Mhm.
it looks to me like there will be some shifting and some vacancy.
Yes.
So this would be a great idea. So for purposes of discussion, Mr. President, I would move to approve both items, to suspend the hiring freeze and to employ 2 harbor workers and Oyster Point. You really want to say Oyster Point? Identify it, we don't want to take up too many minutes.
If you could leave it to Scott and I, we have, we
Say
haven't
again?
had a full blown out, we've had like conversations, but
Yeah.
we'd like to like hash it out a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. If I might suggest, what past practice has been, has not to designate that level of detail in this, but simply to lift a hiring freeze. And that gives staff, general manager adequate ability to make staff allocations as is needed without having to come back to the board every time.
Right, I hear you. However, I would be willing to lift the hiring freeze for a specific reason, to which I would announce right here,
Mhm.
and nothing further.
Mhm.
Because that's how we got to where I think we should not have been, by allowing other things to happen as far as employment and hiring
Mhm.
that got away from us.
Mhm.
So that if you'll bear with me, I'll make a motion and I'll start over. And if you disagree with my motion or the wording, please let me know.
Mhm.
Then I would move to lift the hiring freeze, as we understand it, for the purposes of hiring 2 harbor worker B and a deputy harbor master, and also the hiring of an accounting specialist. That's my motion.
Yes.
Do we have a motion and a second?
I have a question.
Please.
So, from what I'm understanding of your motion, you're suggesting that we need to hire 4 different people? Am I understanding that right?
That's correct.
4 full-time people?
That's correct.
And has there been an analysis to see how we're gonna afford this? Because that's a lot of additional people. Are we losing some people to make up?
We may, but we may not. I mean, we have a lot of people with a lot of years of service, so we could be losing people.
Do we know how much this is gonna cost?
It's in the report.
Can you point it out?
It's at the very back page. Total increase to budget approximately $183,000. That's for the 3 positions.
And Scott, what do you think about this?
What part?
I mean, do you think this is, that it's necessary that we hire 4 full-time people for these
I
positions?
think it's gonna be needed. I mean, I don't disagree with the report at all.
So you're recommending this? And again, it's 183,000, is that right?
Yes, is that what it says? Yes. Give or take. I mean, that's gonna depend on what kind of health benefits they get, how soon I you know, that's an annual salary amount, so it's gonna be a little less for this fiscal year, so we'll have a better amount for next fiscal year. But
So it'll be less than 180?
it'll be less than 180 for this year, because we're already almost in November. We're not gonna get the accounting specialist hired probably till December or January.
So these positions pay approximately, what, 85 to 78,000?
Yeah. The accounting specialist is from 61 to 82, but we normally don't bring anybody up in at the top. We usually bring them in at the bottom. And harbor worker B starts at 31,656 to 47, and deputy harbor master A is 56,900 to 62,600. And, you know, there's 6.25% on top of that for CalPERS, and then whatever the healthcare is, and the life insurance.
So with the healthcare and the life insurance, it seems like it's gonna be a lot more than 183,000. No?
It's all right here. Deputy Harbor Master A, I gave the wage range. Healthcare benefits range from $732 to $2133 per month. Harbor worker B, what range is 31,656 to 47. Healthcare ranges from that, because that's operating engineers. And the accounting specialist is 61,154 to 82. Healthcare benefits for Teamster members are 1638. And the cost of the CalPERS is currently 6.25% per year, and that's a savings of about 20% from what it used to be a long time ago, when we used to have to pay almost 20% or 27%.
So that's gonna take us from, how many employees do we have now?
27 to 31, which is what we had, I think, 5 or 6 years ago.
Pre-recession.
Yes, pre-recession.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. Motion carries. Item number 14, the bills and claims. With the treasurer, Mr. President, and members of the commission, I review the bills and claims in order for your approval in the amount of $180,394.18. So we have a motion and a second to approve the bills and claims for the period ending October the 15th, 2014. Any discussion, questions?
I have a comment. So I'm gonna vote no on the bills and claims, because I have not been provided with a PDF file of the bills, which I've requested numerous times, so that I can review them in advance of the meeting. And I have also offered numerous times to go to the attorney's office to review the bills, and that's been declined. The board's also voted to not allow me to review the bills before the meeting. So for those reasons, I'm gonna vote no.
Do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker? President Caravano?
Aye. Motion carries. We're in the staff reports. First one from the general manager.
Yes, Mr. President, you have my report. I'll take any questions. Nothing further to add.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, I heard that the turnout at the meeting regarding the West Shoreline Access Trail restoration project was very low, and that it was held during a day where there was really heavy traffic on the coast side. This is feedback I've gotten from the public. I thought the board would want to be aware of. I know it was also a conflict for Commissioner Bernardo, because he mentioned that at the last meeting. And I also got some feedback that people were concerned that the meeting was held after the board already voted on the item, and there was a strong letter that I received suggesting that in the future, the district should hold off on voting on something until after the public meeting is held, not hold the public meeting after the board's already made a decision. So just for the board to be better informed and the public to be better informed before the decision is made, I would ask that going forward, we have those types of workshops or informational meetings in advance of a important decision by the board. Thanks.
Second report is from, we have a written report from Director of Finance, Director Janice Galarza.
Have your report. I'll take any questions back to her if anybody has any questions.
Director of Human Resources.
I'll take any questions.
So, any update on Wi-Fi?
No, we're still waiting on Comcast. I think I mentioned it would be 60 to 90 days.
Just checking.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Item number 18, operations, Harbor Master Agreement.
I did forget to mention one thing though, early in the commendations of the thank you letter that I put in the back of my report that was for the team at Oyster Point for their efforts for the tenant event. I want to make sure I brought that up. I'm sorry for being late on responding to that. And also there was a letter of appreciation for the staff on some of their efforts of them doing a update of corrections and such for some of the showers. They did a great job. And the workmanship really showed.
I have a couple of questions. With regards to the installation of the new hoist on Johnson Pier, did the district pay for the electrical installation or did the fish fire?
We haven't paid for that as far as I know.
So the district didn't pay for it?
No.
Okay. And how will that tie into the new electrical running under the pier?
If I recall, that's his panel, it's on his knee.
Okay. And the footprint for that new hoist, since the footprint is, I believe, designated in the leases, is there going to be a update to include the footprint for the new hoist?
Point of information, the lease doesn't specify a footprint. None of those leases do.
No footprint for work area?
No footprint for hoists.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, under Harbor Commissioners, section 19B, Harbor Commission may public statements limited to 5 minutes. Anyone wishing to make a comment? Please, thank you. I want to remind the people that are watching that Saturday from 10 to 1 is the second annual Kite Festival at Oyster Point Marina. 1,000 kites will be given out to the children that are there, and I haven't heard a definition of children yet, so I've had some inquiries about that. My understanding that there's going to be some ice cream or frozen confections that will also be given out. It's my understanding there'll be Boy Scouts there to help assemble the kites. It's my understanding that there is going to be a fire truck there for children to explore and learn about. So it will be a fun event, and I encourage anybody to attend that is a child, is young at heart. I attended the strategic planning workshop last night. There were about 20 people that signed in. From what I understand, the consultants used the same process for notifying the public that was used the first time when we got about 70 to 90 people there. I was at that one as well. Also, I appreciated being able to participate in the roundtables going around to the different stations and discussing the different issues, but I was more interested in listening, and I stayed to the very end when there was some reporting out of that and some summarizing of that, and found that the discussion
was very thorough and very productive. I was appreciative of all the feedback that we got. Thank you very much.
I will not be flying kites this Saturday. I have made plans to man the booth for the Harbor District at the Oktoberfest. So I can be found on Main Street in front of the farmers.
Oktoberfest or the Pumpkin Festival?
What did I say?
You said Oktoberfest.
Well, I was thinking about the beer, but
Yes.
that's all right. Pumpkin Festival. I will be there to give away whatever trinkets you have conjured up for us to give away.
Awesome.
On a more serious note, not that that's not serious, I want to congratulate our acting general manager. I want you to know you have my complete support, and anything you need from me, I'll be pleased to try and give to you if it's within my power to do so. I have a lot of respect for you, and I have a high opinion of your expertise and your ability to get things done. I mean, there's so much we don't know here that you are doing up at Everett. It's just unbelievable that I've learned in part from you and in part from others. So I look forward to great things. We've had great things in the past with Mr. Grinnell, and I think with his assistance in the next couple of months, you'll pick up where he's leaving off. And I'm excited for you, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Any other statements?
I have some.
Please.
So with regard to the Pumpkin Festival, looking forward to that as always, and I will be joining Commissioner Tucker. I'm sure we're gonna have a great time. Also, at the strategic planning meeting, which was billed as a workshop, held last night, unfortunately, it was last call for people to finish their taxes. We had some problems with outreach. If you don't count elected officials and staff, there were probably about 6 or 7 members of the public there total. I know because I was there and I counted, and it was a problem. People were very concerned about the lack of outreach. So I wanted to bring that to the attention of the board, because there are some things that we could do in the future to improve our outreach efforts. The county's been very successful working with some consultants who are well-versed in outreach, and we can see the results of that at the planned Princeton meetings, which are highly attended. They usually get about 80 to 100 people at those meetings. So I think we need to do a better job on our outreach. I believe the consultants have heard that loud and clear, because that was certainly commented on by members of the public and other elected officials at the meeting held last night. Also, I'd like to mention that it was unfortunate that PCTV was not asked to videotape that workshop. So I was very disappointed that they weren't there. I know that wasn't their fault, because the district declined to request their services, but I think it would have been a benefit to the public had we videotaped that meeting. Then the last thing is following up on some concerns I had about our billings. I would like to request, and I can look at this either in our attorney's office, PDF, redacted, whatever makes sense. I would like to see the billings for Liebert, Cassidy, Whitmore, and also Hanson, Bridget for, for the past 2 years. Just put it that way. You guys haven't been on board that long. So I would like to review those billings. I've already made that request clear to Hanson, Bridget, and so far nothing has been provided to me. I'm flexible about how I receive that stuff, where I read it or whatnot. I don't want it to become a burden to the staff, so if there's something I can do to make it easier by showing up at somebody's office and sitting in their conference room at our attorney's office, I'd be happy to do that. I'm not going to the Harbor District Administrative Office, because my attorney has advised me that that is not something that I should do, but I'm flexible about where I review the billings. So just wanted to make that clear. I'd like to do that ASAP.
Mr. President, would it be appropriate for me just to respond to that real briefly, if I might, out of order?
If she's done making
If
statements.
Commissioner Brennan, with your permission, may I?
Sure.
So, I have nothing to hide in my billings. I want to make that clear to all of you. I feel in a tight spot because this is an issue of some controversy before the board. And I feel we have an established process by which we submit our invoices to the district. And at the pleasure of the board, I would be more than happy, and it is no burden at all, to make our invoices available under other circumstances. But I feel some constraints to do so on my own initiative. And in fairness to all of you, I request a little direction as to how you would like me to proceed with regard to Commissioner Brennan's request. And it may be that the proper way to do this would be to agendize this for a future meeting rather than take a vote. I don't suggest that you take a vote. I just would like to announce that while, again, I have nothing to hide, I feel a little uncomfortable responding to the request.
So just to respond, if it's easier, I can just go ahead and put in a PRA request for it, and then you can just redact it. So if that makes it, I just want to keep it moving because I know there've been a lot of delays and foot dragging going on, and I don't think that you have anything to hide, and I'm not suggesting that, but as a board member, you know, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we are spending our money intelligently, and I think that it's important that the board be looking at the billings from our attorneys because that is a big ticket item. So just,
I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think that makes perfect sense. I just
Right.
hope you appreciate the spot that I find myself in with regard to your request.
you know, PRA request, I can
I hate
send
to-
tomorrow.
We're talking about commissioner statements here. So are you?
Well, this is my fault for interjecting myself into this commissioner statement.
So I'll send the PRA, thanks.
I hate to see that have to be done.
But that seems to be what you want.
Okay.
It's not what I want, no.
Let me ask you, you were speaking of your buildings, just yours, right, from your corporation?
Yeah, I have no knowledge of another law firm's billings. I was speaking only about mine.
Yeah, I would have no problem with you sending your buildings to anyone, as long as they're redacted as far as any personal names or situations are concerned.
Okay, so perhaps I've misunderstood the input from the board.
I think, and I'm not speaking for my colleagues, but the board's input has always been, as it pertains to our routine bills and claims being viewed by anyone. But if you take a bill and send a bill to our corporation for X number of dollars, and you want to send that billing to someone else, I have no problem with that. That's your business, as long as you redact any personal information.
I disagree with that process.
This is precisely the pickle that I find myself in.
Yes, fine.
Then may I make, not to belabor this whole discussion and make it spiral out, but, can we have an informational report on this at the next meeting so that we do continue this discussion, but not right now? Can we agendize it as an informational report?
I think we're about to come to the part of the meeting where you could make a
Okay,
motion
I'm
to
sorry.
do that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm out of turn.
No, I don't.
We're still at statements then.
Well, I'm
We're still
done,
at
so
statements.
if no one has another statement, why don't you make a motion?
Are we done with statements?
I'm done with my statements, thank you.
Commissioner Bernard?
Okay, I would like to agendize an informational item for the next meeting on just legal billings and kind of how best to present that and give that, you know, information out expeditiously and basically as expeditiously as possible because we don't want any, yes.
I thought we had already given some billings out before, so I'm kind of confused as to why this request is for 2 years, because I thought we had already done some, but I could look at.
Have we, okay, well, could that be part of the informational report, like just mention that?
So just for my help, I need I'm not sure,
I'll
the informational report you're asking for is information on how we submit our bills? What?
or just how you go through the process of how you submit your bills and kind of who does it go to exactly and that type, just sort of the very basics, just the very basics, and I mean that would help me too. And
How would that accomplish anything? He puts a stamp on an envelope and sends the bill to us.
well, no, I mean just maybe walk me through the actual statement itself. Walk me through the actual statement itself. I don't look at too many of these. So
Okay, I understand your motion now, I do.
Would you explain it to us? If it gets a second.
I'm going to describe how I go about preparing my bills for submission to the district and how I then actually submit them to the district.
I don't think that's what Commissioner Brennan was looking for.
Oh, I was listening to Mr. Bernardo's.
That's my suggestion.
We're done
That was my
with me,
suggestion.
I have
Okay.
nothing to do with this, okay? I'm just listening.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, and this is this is not only for me, but also just for the public's, just so that the public understands too, in a very open and transparent, good government kind of way.
And I will be able to speak only to my own practices.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna second that motion because I'm curious.
Okay, we have a motion and a
Supporting
second.
my good government.
Roll call, please.
Transparency.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Paravano?
Aye. Okay, so
Thank you.
this is for the next meeting?
Yes.
Informational report.
Okay, information. Any other agenda items for the commissioners?
Well, just to clarify, because there was a little confusion about the two different things that were being asked for, I would make a motion to have the billings provided to me at Hanson Bridget's office so that I could review them so that they wouldn't have to go through the trouble of doing redaction, which takes time. However, based on past motions like that, I could never get anywhere with that. So I don't think it's worth making the motion unless I hear otherwise right now. So given the fact that that's going to be a failed attempt, I'm going to move forward with just putting in my PRA request tomorrow for not just Hanson Bridget's billings, but also Liebert Cassidy Whitmore. And unfortunately, that's going to require that they be redacted, which means that I'll get less information, which is unfortunate as a commissioner.
I'm sorry, point of order, this is only for putting agenda items on the agenda.
Well, I'm listening because if you guys thought that this, I'm suggesting that, I can't make this motion because in the past you guys have not
Okay,
been
but we're
supportive.
talking about putting motions on the agenda.
You can always make a motion.
It might be helpful if I just comment that if the district receives a Public Records Act request for its attorney's billings, attorney billings are attorney-client privilege information, and they will be redacted, and the time spent redacting them will be billable time that the district will incur costs for.
Okay, so like I just said, it's gonna cost extra. So I'll go ahead and make the motion and I move to, at the next board meeting, have an agenda item to discuss setting aside a time and an appropriate location for any board member that wishes to. Obviously, we'd want to do it at the same time so we're not using too much staff time to review Liebert Cassidy Whitmore and Hanson Bridget billings. And maybe that has to happen in 2 different meetings, I don't know, but I think you get the point. Do I need to rephrase it? So I'm asking this because this will save the district money. If I'm allowed to go to our attorney's office and sit in the conference room without having to bother them and just leaf through their billings, it'll save the district money versus me having to put in a PRA request. So I'm asking the board to please second my motion. Do I need to rephrase it? Is it clear?
I have a question.
We have no
Okay.
second. We have no second on this, so the motion fails.
So if you want to ask questions, why don't you second the motion and then you can ask.
Okay, so we're moving on, the motion failed.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I have another request here. Let's not be too hasty. I would like to agendize an item on the next agenda to discuss hiring an executive search firm to assist with the hiring process of a new general manager.
There is no second, so the motion fails. Commissioner Bernardo, you already mentioned. Anybody else? Okay, I have one that I would like to ask my fellow commissioners to consider for putting a motion on the next agenda. And it regards the confidential attorney-client communications between our district attorney and the commission. We understand that, I think we understand that any confidential attorney-client communications, whether in writing or oral or discussed during closed session meetings under the Brown Act, must be kept confidential. And disclosures of any of these attorney-client privileged communications to unauthorized persons without the permission of the commission, whether inadvertent or intentional, could have a potential adverse consequence to the commission and to the district. So I would ask a motion be placed on the next agenda for a policy to be written that addresses these confidential attorney-client communications regarding the disclosures and the confidentiality of these communications. And also remedies for any disclosure that are found to be made regarding these privileged attorney-client communications.
What kind of information is that? A request for an informational report by district counsel, legal counsel?
No, I'd like to place this on a motion, on the agenda to have this, have a policy written regarding this.
All right, thank you for the clarification. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions? Good.
Could I just clarify, who would be writing that policy that you're asking? Would this be a motion to direct me to provide you with a policy for you to consider? Is that what you're suggesting, or you're asking, okay?
I have a question, but isn't there already a policy on this? I'm sorry for the stupid question, but isn't there already, I mean, it's the law, isn't it? I mean, isn't it the law?
It's the law, but.
You can't violate attorney-client privilege.
But we have a lot of policies that are backed up by laws, so there's nothing to say that there can't be a policy written.
It's redundant.
Well, so we have a sexual harassment policy, it's against the law, but we still have a policy. So we have a lot of things that you make a policy for that, you know.
Without endorsing or commenting on the motion, you are correct that there are statutory provisions regarding consequences for violation of attorney-client communications in the context of closed session in the Brown Act. There are public agencies that have policies that consider unauthorized disclosure of any type of attorney-client communications by any number of types of people and address district, well, in this case district, but agency-specific enforcement mechanisms separate and apart from the legal issues surrounding the violation of the Brown Act closed sessions circumstances.
I see. So these are for areas outside of the Brown Act and this
Could
is
be.
more
I'm not 100%
unconsistent.
sure that I understand. I think I understand. I mean, I'm bringing, the understanding I'm bringing to President Parvano's motion is my understanding from what I know other agencies do. So to the extent that I'm understanding his motion, that's what my understanding is. But you'll have to see what I bring to you, and maybe it's not what you had in mind. I don't know.
Here's the nature of my question. It's just, I support this in theory, okay? But I do want the policy to have some teeth, so it's not just kind of informational. I want it to actually be meaningful and enforceable in some way. So anyway, okay, my question's answered, thank you.
I have a question.
Please.
So, we have to abide by the Brown Act. Anything in addition to the Brown Act would simply be an opportunity for us to pay additional unnecessary legal fees. For that reason, I don't see what the purpose of this is. I think we need to abide by the Brown Act. That is our Bible. That's what we should be using. So, I think this is just basically adding up more legal fees that we don't need to be paying, and we need to refer to the Brown Act.
Any other comments? Do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. The motion carries.
Just after the question, after the fact, there's no way there can be any punishment that would be less than the law currently requires. But definitely to enhance the sanction. Councilman Holsinger.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Caravano?
Aye. We are adjourned.